Good day, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a comic book that I started but I ended up not completing, and I'm going to tell you why. So I started a comic book called Ozosi. It's about Yoruba mythology and Yoruba orishas or Yoruba gods, right? I was inspired by things such as Thor, God of War, and other stories like that, and I wanted to create something with like similarity but based in Nigeria, right? Something from Nigerian mythology. And I was really inspired by it. And it's something I've been working on for a very long time. I had like a story draft or the ideation, like even the character design. I have done a lot of character design, I've done a lot of character illustrations, and I've done various stuffs, but I decided to stop or like cancel the project. I just did an issue 0 or like a brief teaser or intro to the story, but then I stopped it. I put the project on hold. And the reason I did that was because I actually wanted to focus on one thing, and I had not built enough muscle in terms of like creating comics. I had not developed the ability to publish comics consistently on a schedule. So I figured out that I had to stop and just focus on one thing, learn to publish comics um, over and over and over again, learn to dish out continuous output so that I can be better. And because I was still developing this, I just decided to focus on I Am Terror, my comic, the comic I'm currently working on. And whenever I'm done with that, I'll then move on to another thing. Because the reason, I'm not saying you should do this, I'm not saying anybody should do this, I'm just explaining my own experience and why I decided to do this. Because I have like about 5 or 6 stories that I want to work on, like original stories that I want to work on, not original, but like stories that I want to work on, that I'm interested in working on. But if I've not like gone really far in one thing, or like I haven't developed like really good experience in one thing, tackling all those stories can be very overwhelming. And just working on one comics, if you've ever worked on a comic before, you know how overwhelming it is doing the story, getting the ideation, working on the past, present, and future, thinking ahead, right? Thinking about the future of the story, right? And how you're going to work on it, how you're going to do the inking, the penciling, how much pages you're going to do, how to publish it, the editing, like making content around it. All these things take a lot of time, right? And that is just for one story. And then imagine doing it for like 5 or like 6 stories or even 2 stories, right? So I just decided that I have this idea of this story, and currently I can't push out the content and the story as consistently as I would like to. Even the first story, right? I haven't published it as much as I would want to. I've done just 6 issues. I'm currently working on the 7th issues, and it's basically taking forever to finish. So my own suggestion is that, like, if you have all these different ideas that you want to do, let's say you have a Marvel cinematic universe or a Marvel comic universe in your head and you want to do it, I would suggest that you start with just one story and then work around it, right? That's if you're like the artist. Usually if you're the artist, you're working on multiple projects. But like a writer, there's more leeway with writers, right? You can do multiple projects at once, usually. At least that's what I've heard that's what I've heard about in the comic book industry. So like a comic book writer could be working on Spider-Man, could be working on Thor, could be working on Iron Man, could be working on Hulk at the same time, right? If you're the writer slash artist, it's a bit more difficult, it's a bit more nuanced than that. There's just a lot of thinking going on. That's why I always suggest that you collaborate with someone else, with a writer, with a colorist, or like you just work on your comic book with someone, like people that you're willing to collaborate with. In my opinion, that's my own suggestion, but that's what I decided to do. My colleague was, he had his own project, he had his own life, and I had my own life, had my own things going on, and it wasn't, he was dedicated as much as I was, but like, there are these times when you're making a transition in your life, and it's going to, take a lot of your attention, right? It's going to take a lot of commitment on that part. And so like the comic stalled for a while and we weren't working on it for a while. So I just decided to like not necessarily bin it. I have the idea of the story in my head. I still have notes on it. I've still like I've still put down a lot of ideas and concepts that I want to introduce into the story, but I'm in the future, hopefully, if I live long enough, or like whenever I'm done with what I'm currently working on, I would approach that story, but I'll do it in a different way. So it's not like I've totally binned the idea, but the story will still like be published in a different way, or I'll start the story afresh, and it may sound like a totally different story. But what the gist of all this, of everything I'm talking about, is that the best way to work on multiple stories is to pick one, finish it, and then go to another one. Pick one, finish it, go to another one. Pick one, finish it, go to another one. Pick one, finish it, go to another one. You're done with issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, right? Not everybody can be Naoki Urasawa, and even before Naoki Urasawa started like working on multiple projects at the same time, yeah, which was like almost took his life. Yeah, that working so hard like that almost took his life. Not everybody can have that type of work ethic or dedication or commitment towards creation. It can be a fun concept to talk about and listen to, like it sounds badass, like you're a really hard worker when you're starting out, but like it is difficult, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of commitment. So pick one story, yeah, all the stories you have in your list, pick one, finish it, move to another one. Pick one, finish it, move to another one. Depending on how many issues you want to do, you might want to do 6 issues, you might want to do 600 issues, but just pick one. That is my own opinion, and that is how I've decided to work on my own story. That is how I decided to, that's why I decided to, like, I have a sports comic book that I want to work on, right? I have adventure comic book I want to work on. These stories have been stored, right? They are just in the background and I haven't developed it much. I might be scrolling on social media or on X some days and I might see something that might inspire or add to that story, and I'll just go and note that down. It's not like I'm actively working on it. I'm just going to have that idea and note that down. And that is how I've been working on, my comic, and that's how I've decided to work on my comic. It's not a perfect system, but that is sort of what I've been concentrating on. And when you apply focus to one thing, you tend to be a lot more faster. When you're laser focused, you tend to complete things quicker and you tend to progress faster. Yeah. When you apply a lot of energy towards one thing, you are going to make progress and make development and make improvements faster. So that's just my take on it. I had a comic book called Ozosi that I was working on. I had to stop because it was taking up extra head space, which should have been left for just like the comic that I'm currently working on. So I had to stop and then focus on that, and that's what I'm currently focusing on. So whenever I'm done with this comic, I'm going to move to that one, and whenever I'm done with that one, I'm going to move to the next and move to the next and move to the next. And that's how I've decided to work on my own comic. And yeah, that's just it. That's just what I wanted to tell you about. My comic is called I Am Tero IAT. It's on Global Comics. You can check it out. Link is in the description. And I'll see you guys later.